Welcome, magical ones, to an alchemical life where our mission is to liberate humanity from limitation and suffering and bring magic back to the world. One moment, one life, one heartbeat at a time. Aloha and welcome everyone to An Alchemical Life. My name is Kira, I'm your host, and I am joined today by my beautiful sister, Sarah. We've just met recently, but definitely already sisters. And yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. I think what I just really want to highlight that I witnessed in you is such a deep love for the women around you. It's a really beautiful thing. Like, you have this true gift of like calling out the beauty in every single woman that you encounter. And there's like, I don't ever whiff any competition in you, which is like rare, you know? Yeah. And you also like really truly do have, which we'll talk about this more, but you really truly have this like very liberating energy to you. And you really give people permission to expand. And so I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for saying that, love. I feel tears coming to my eyes already. I am late luteal, I'm double Pisces, and thinking about the love I have for the women in my life and hearing that reflected to me makes me feel so tender and so honored to be here with you.
Yeah. Yay. Okay, let me pull it up and read the officials. So Sarah Folsom was raised on the island of Kauai in a non-traditional family, an upbringing that shaped her devotion to living a truly liberated life. We have that in common. She entered the fitness industry at 18, launching her first business as a way to find grounding and a sense of control amidst a beautifully chaotic early life. But as she deepened her journey, Sarah discovered that true freedom wasn't just found in the physical, it was in the unseen internal landscapes of emotion and energy that held the greatest influence over her actions, thoughts, and patterns. Yes. This realization led her to integrate the physical body with the emotional and energetic realms, and from that fusion, Shake Rising was born, a transformational movement practice with a mission to liberate all beings. Which I have to say, I've experienced several times myself, and it's deeply profound. Like, you've truly created something that I've never seen. And so it's like very unique in that there is this spiritual aspect wrapped in with sensuality and sexuality and physicality and all of this happening at one time. So it's really brilliant. Yeah. So I would really love to start with your own journey of liberation, whatever you feel led to share from that. Yeah, just like what caught me in your introduction is the chaotic family and non-traditional. And, I know there's like a lot of different aspects. And so kind of what were you working with and how did you like find your way through liberation yourself?
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I, really truly feel like Shake Rising and this reflection you just offered of how it blends together all these aspects of self. It's this remembrance of our wholeness that has brought me to such a deep devotion to liberation from a place of feeling all of these fractals of self and parts of self that could exist and parts of self that couldn't exist. And remembering that there is at some point an opportunity to be so whole and so integrated with all parts that's really sparked this desire to be liberated.
Mm.
And so from a, tangible, tactical, logistical level, I'll share my story. And essentially, my mom and my dad are amazing and we all have great relationships now, thank God. And at the time that they were raising my sister and I, they were both really young and really in the throes of their own drug and alcohol abuse and addiction. And so my parents divorced before I was one. So I never really had, that traditional mom dad dynamic. It was always my mom and my sister and I, and dad on the weekends or on the holidays. And my mother really struggled with feeling free, really struggled with being a mom and being under resourced and being addicted to certain substances. And as a young girl, seeing that, I felt this deep sense of responsibility to care for my mother and care for my sister and hold it all together. And of course, that was impossible as a child. And so there was always this sense of deep responsibility and lack of control. And at age 12, my sister and I, she's a year older than me, really started getting into trouble. Growing up on Kauai, there's not much to do here. So we started, sneaking out of the house and hanging out with people that were a lot older than us and using substances. And my mom, coming from a place of having no idea what to do, outsourced and sent my sister and I both to a therapeutic reform boarding school. I was 12, she was 13. It was a whole journey getting us there that involved people coming in and taking us from our home and bringing us to a boot camp and eventually making it to this boarding school. And although at the time I felt literally zero sense of control, being taken from my environment and thrust into another one for my overall well being, and that was traumatic at the time, I now can say that that absolutely saved my life, because what happened at that school was I learned structure and control and discipline and consequences, these things that my mom had no idea how to do. She really let us run wild. And it felt like a saving grace to have a structure. If you do this, this happens. If you don't do this, this happens. Really started to shape this need and reveal to me, wow, I really need to have a sense of control over my own life. I really need to have a sense of structure. Otherwise, I feel scared and helpless and powerless and a sense of responsibility that is impossible to hold. And it was during that time at that therapeutic reform school that I started moving my body and noticing that fitness was another avenue in which I could do an action and receive a result. And it was this immediate response of, wow, this is a sense of control over my own body, my own emotional well-being, over my time. Fitness became a pathway for me to experience this control that I never got to experience. And so as I, left that boarding school, came back to Kauai, finished high school, I found another source of control, which was, as I was in that boarding school, my mom became a born again Christian. And that was a huge shift for our family. I remember her calling and being like, I need to tell you something. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm like totally a Jesus freak now. And I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, I go to church like 3 times a week. And
She's like, here, I'll just hand you the DC Talk song. Just listen.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm 13 at the time. I'm like, if this means we're not going to be chaotic and using drugs and having no care or adult supervision, like I'm sold. Like, you don't have to tell me anything more. Like, I'm in. And then I started going down that path as well. I went to Israel. I got baptized in the Jordan River when I was 16 years old and had this profound connection to God. And I felt like every worship song was true. I was like, wow, I'm saved. I'm saved from this shit life, like I'm literally seeing my entire family shift because of this decision. And that was really, really beautiful for a couple of years until the church and the community members of the church started putting control over me. You can't do this, or you're not going to heaven. You can't do this, or you don't actually love God. And I remember thinking, like, this is not what you guys sold me. You sold me unconditional love and freedom and saviorship and safety. And so I ended up leaving the church and really starting my journey towards freedom. So it was this really interesting journey of needing control so badly, having zero sense of control for myself or no one controlling me, and finding that sense of control and it bringing me to, okay, now that I feel safe enough structure, enough control that I feel safe to just exist here, I want to be free to exist here. I don't want to be kept captive by other people's opinions, by my own mind, by past memories, all of these different voices and different influences that are now making me not be able to experience the love of God, for instance, right? I found this unconditional love and then it was taken away by measures of control. And so it was this beautiful journey to find the structure to feel safe enough to find freedom, to really actually fully live this life 100% inhabited, embodied, and whole, right? Like, instead of you can love God, but you can't exist like this, or this, it was, wow, I can feel the love of God and be the fullest expression of myself. And that's really what took me on this journey of noticing how fitness became something similar. The sense of control that originally was a medicine for me in that it gave me structure to feel safe, then became a shackle and something that kept me only in my physical body, focused on my physical body, and realizing that there was so much more internally that was actually at play. And so as I started looking into this energy body and this emotional body, it brought me back into the space of true freedom with all parts available to exist. Yeah.
Okay, just that. Wow. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for sharing everything that you just shared. Because that was vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. My gosh, I can't tell. I mean, we've spoken a little bit about how similar our pasts were. My mom didn't have drug addiction, but there was definitely mental illness. And so the same instability. Dad was gone. And it was just me and her.
Mm.
And so I can so relate. I too grabbed exercise. I also had an eating disorder for the longest time. Like that need for I just need to be able to know that I can affect my environment, that I can affect my own life, that it's not all somebody else telling me what to do and when to do it. And it makes sense in a way that the body would be the first thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we deeply felt the unsafety in the body.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that you said that I kind of am like, oh, I want to know more about that. So I'm trying to like pick in my brain. I'm really curious what your journey was with finding freedom once you had grabbed the control.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to start loosening it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you find that process happen naturally as you felt more safe? Because I witnessed in myself, there's still ways that I'm controlling. I mean, I'm so much better than I was, but I have a system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really asking for a friend. Like, did you find that just naturally faded as you found more safety in your circumstances? Or was it something that you like were intentionally working on, or a little bit of both?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And, I feel like most of our most powerful activations come from these pain points, right? Like you and I can resonate that because there was such deep pain in feeling like we had no control over our environment, over our life, over our parents' choices that affected us deeply, we grabbed the body. And that was a healthy coping mechanism. And it's like when our healthy coping mechanism, when our medicine, when our tool becomes too small for the next evolution of self, it becomes poison or toxic. And I think that happens all the time, right? Like we enter into a relationship with a sister or a partner that feels really, really good. And then we may outgrow one another. And it's like, all right, this is now needing to shift its orientation and or stop completely. And so what happened was like a very visceral experience, but I think it can play out over many different experiences. And it was teaching this specific class that was like a cardio dance class, and it was sexy and really high intensity. And it was during COVID. And I remember doing it on the laptop, and all these women were like, thank you so much. This is amazing. We really need this. And in the moment, I was like, yes, this feels so good. And the moment everyone would log off of Zoom, I felt this incredible irritation and this excessive energy that felt like so activated and alive, and maybe even like horny, to be crass. And no way to explore that. We're in lockdown, I'm alone. And I had this moment where I was like, whoa, something I'm doing that is healthy and beneficial is now not. And this has been my main medicine. Like movement has saved my life. Now, what am I going to do? And I remember it feeling really scary to realize this doesn't work anymore. And I can imagine you may have experienced something similar where you're tuning into your body and all of a sudden maybe it forms this eating disorder and you're like, oh shit, I went a little too far. This is now not it, right? And so how I reconciled that was, okay, what is happening? I'm experiencing a lot of energy in my body. Great. How can I take this energy and work with it instead of being like, well, now I can't do the workout? And so I started just using like the energy body, the chakra system, as a way to be like, I'm having a pain point. It is that I am now having too much energy, during a movement practice, which I love and is very important for me and my mental well-being, my sense of control. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to take the energy that's being activated and I'm going to funnel it through the energy body as like an experiment. Will this help me to alleviate the pain point that I'm feeling, which is I'm experiencing too much energy now? And so I started just in that class, in that movement practice, talking about the energy centers and like consciously pulling energy through the centers. And it was like that. It was a moment where I was like, wow, cool. Now I feel nourished. Now I feel integrated. Now I feel like I'm working with this energy. And so that was like this specific moment of like how fitness stopped working and I was able to access something different. But the question of like letting go of control to access liberation came from this moment where I realized the control that I've accessed has been really, really helpful up to a point, and now I need something different. Now it's controlling me. Now I'm back at the exact same point I was with my mom, where I felt like I had no sense of control, but instead of my mom and her actions affecting me, it's me. I am now putting myself in captivity. And it's almost like this taking the power back instead of like, you are making me feel a lack of control and I need to do something. I got to be like, oh, it's me. I'm making myself feel a lack of control.
Wow.
And that's why I'm grasping so much control. Okay, cool. Well, let's look at what's actually happening. What are the emotions coming up? And what's the energy arising that makes me feel like I need more and more and more?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so helpful, I think, for people who, because honestly, if there was any trauma, any abuse, anything like that in your childhood, which sadly that's more common than not, it's so helpful for people because I think we all have that control. Like we want to grab that control and we all do it in different ways, and there's also the distractions. Like we start introducing the distractions so we don't have to feel what it is that feels so intense and so overwhelming. And so I'm really curious, like, well, I have two questions. One is like, as you transitioned out of the church, like when and how did you find spirituality? Because by the time you were teaching this class, you already had an awareness of the energy body and like how to work with that. And so I'm really curious about that journey, like how you transitioned. And then my second question is, and maybe this will kind of come up in relation to you sharing, but when and how did you make friends with feeling? Because like, in my experience, that's like the toughest journey because for me, and I'm sure for you as well, like the emotions that wanted to occur when I was a child were like terrifying. And so I really slammed up this, I'm fine. Like I was so expert at that, and Leo sons, we can really do that, right? Like we're just like the bright, shiny face all the time. And underneath you're like dying. So yeah, those are my two questions. Like, what was the spiritual journey like? And then how did you make friends with feeling?
So good. I would say, the first piece is making friends with feelings happened by absolute necessity at the boarding school. So when I went to that boarding school, it was therapy multiple times a week, individual and group, and it was talking about our feelings so that we could heal our own shit, right? It wasn't about your parents fucking you up. It was, you're a troubled child. And so let's work on that. And I got a lot of dopamine hits from being able to sit in a group and say, hey, this hurt my feelings. And then the member in the group saying, I understand that would hurt your feelings and I'm sorry. I never got that with my mom. We weren't able to get there. There was too much emotional deregulation and lack of resources. And I mean, to not my mom's fault at all. She was completely under-resourced. And so it felt really good during that time from 12 to 14 to really make friends with feelings and see how really it just made my life better in every way. Whether that continued strongly out of the boarding school in high school, I think it probably, shifted a little bit where my focus became on God and what God feels and not necessarily how I feel, which in some sense is a distraction to how I feel and overriding my body and my desires and my dreams for this God's desires and God's dreams. And so when I left the church, it was when I got my first boyfriend. I was like 17. And I remember the church saying, you cannot hang out alone because you need to be above reproach, and hanging out alone may cause you to stumble. You cannot hold hands because if you hold hands, it may lead to something else against God's will. And you really shouldn't be dating because dating is for marriage. And I remember thinking, how does anything you just shared have anything to do with me loving God and God loving me back? They seem so like, it seems like what you're saying is just what you think I should do, not when did God say that? And so it was a pretty quick decision for me to be like, I joke where I'm like, oh, once I got my first boyfriend, I was like, see you later, Jesus, but like kind of.
Yeah.
And so leaving the church took me away from God for a long time. And so I didn't come back to a sense of spirituality until, well, actually, there was another pain point. But I'll just pause here for a moment because what I share often in Shake Rising is even though it makes sense, it is wild that we would completely leave a relationship with the mysterious divine because of something someone said, right? Like letting a person's opinion take me away from the frequency of God is
Mm.
wild, although it makes sense, right? Because I'm associating, well, if God is this way, I'm out, instead of having enough sovereignty to say, that's not my God. And I'm so sorry you think that I can't hold hands with someone or spend time alone with someone or even have sex with someone and not be in relationship with God, but that's not my God. Of course, I didn't have that skill set at that time. So I left all, remnants of God or the divine or anything like that. And I had a chapter of just being in relationship and being normal. And then when I had this breakup, I remember feeling so devastated, and a friend invited me to some gathering and there were like oracle cards there, and I was like, oh, it's a bunch of hippies, like whatever, cool, I'm post breakup, like I'm open to experience whatever.
Yeah.
And it was actually my first ecstatic dance that I went to. And I had this funny experience where I looked like I had no idea what ecstatic dance was. So I got all cute and I was like, I'm going to meet like a hot guy or something.
Like going to the club.
Yeah. And I like walk in and everyone's being strange and obscure. And not one person looked at me. And it was a total ego trip for me at first where I was like, oh, I must not look cute. These must not be my people. No one's looking at me. No one's giving me attention. And then it was like, oh my God, no one's looking at me. And it just was this moment where I was like, I could do whatever I want. I could move however I want. I could sound however I want. I could do whatever I want and no one cares. And it was this like massive activation of freedom that really like dropped me into spirituality in the sense of like, this is it. This is exactly what I felt with God, in that there is this like unexplainable juiciness and no one else is telling me how to do it or how to access it. And so after that ecstatic dance, I was sold and I was like, whatever these people are doing, I want more. I want to experience more. And yeah, it just dropped me so deep into my body and accessing the divine through my body and feeling God through my body and having it be this like deep interpersonal one-to-one relationship, rather than having that first experience where it was that and then everyone else came in and told me how it had to be. Yeah, I'm hoping that answers your question.
Yeah, totally. Where did you go from there? Like, what did you study? I'm just so curious. Like, did you study? So I think the reason I'm asking is just, yeah, like I came out of the church about 3 years ago. Also, I mean, it wasn't necessarily because of ecstatic dance, but ecstatic dance found me like right after that. And I remember we were on a beach and like this was like a group of people over on the sand barking like dogs and like, just like, and I remember being like, I don't know what is happening, but I really love it. I don't feel confident enough to get down on the floor with them yet, but I'm into this. And so I just kept going back and getting like more and more liberated. And then as I got in touch with the spiritual community, and I'm just curious if it's the same, I just went like everywhere. I was studying everything, like tell
Mhm.
me about Tantra, tell me about Buddhism, tell me about this, tell me about that, like astrology, gene keys, like all that came in for me. So yeah, I'm just curious, like what was that like for you, that first dabble into, oh, I get to decide what this is?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's a great question. This phrase is coming to mind that like I've always been a body person. Like, from the very beginning when I was experiencing such a lack of control, I remember, as I was dabbling into like being a little naughty, I remember like so deeply wanting to explore my body with other people
Yeah.
and doing that at age 12, which of course now we know like, okay, you got to dial it back when you're 12 years old, can't be doing that in math class or whatever. But it was always like, what's going on with this body and that body? And then,
That's very innocent though. It's like, yeah, just discovering,
and
which also,
feeling.
side note, guys, she has a lot of Virgo and a lot of Pisces, and that actually makes so much sense for that, because Virgo's like the body and wholeness, and Pisces is like, I just want to connect.
Yes,
So
that.
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly that. It's that Virgo Pisces energy, like you said it perfectly. So that was like pre-boarding school. Then in boarding school I had fitness that like really lit me up. And then coming out of boarding school I had God that really lit me up while I was still moving my body and using that as like this sense of control. And so once I had this, it was almost like this roller coaster ride of like lack of control, finding body. Oh my God, it feels so good to surrender to God. Lack of control, finding body. Oh my God, it feels so good to surrender to like divine, and just kind of
Wow.
riding it. And so when I had that second pocket of like surrendering to divine, the first one being like baptized in the Jordan River, and the second one really being ecstatic dance, there was this like deep desire to explore, how can I experience this divine freedom in this body more? So I just danced all the time, everywhere, any place, always. And it was that my study was just, how can I experience this God like energy in my body? And so I didn't go necessarily to bodies of work or astrology, gene keys. It was just like, I want to keep experiencing this in this body. And so it
Wow.
was a lot of dance, a lot, like dancing on the beach with my headphones during COVID, and someone make a video of me, and it went to this little viral meme of like crazy person on the beach, like really, really getting it. But I will say what I did study, and it might have been the only couple things I studied, were meditation, being in my body, being still. I did a lot of like Deepak Chopra's 30-day challenges, Peter Levine's work with somatic experiencing, like, wow, the body to release trauma, like what an interesting thing. That kind of stemming from like Osho's meditations, where it was like this dynamic dance meditation, leading me to like Peter Levine's work, where he was like, of course, Osho's meditations work, like everything's stored in the body. And then I was reading the Mary Magdalene manuscript, and about like sexual energy being through the body and being holy. And yeah, it was just this whole experience of like diving into my body, and whatever resource came through at that time, be it Deepak or Osho or Peter Levine or even Joe Dispenza, was just like, okay, great. If it lets me be here and experience this in my body, yeah, like sign me up.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's such permission for all of us to come back into the body. And I feel like that, as much as in the spiritual community, like obviously we talk about that a lot, like it's become such a buzzword almost. It's still one of the most challenging things when you live in such a society that is just like dominated the other way. It's not actually, my last podcast guest and I were talking about this, like this separation from the great mother. And I feel like that separation from nature has also resulted in a separation from our bodies
Mm-hmm.
that is almost like profoundly wired in, on a very, very deep level, because it's so ancestral. um and so I love that journey of like exploring and experimenting just for the pleasure of feeling the divine within your own body. And since you brought up Mary Magdalene,
Mm-hmm.
she's one of my, yeah, I just have a very profound respect for her energy. I read the Mary Magdalene manuscripts probably about 3 years ago, maybe two, and huge activation. Like, wow, remembrance, of, oh, this this was what it means to be divine. Like, we actually are not even just connecting with the divine, we are the divine. And it's about remembering that within the body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, do I want to go here? But I think I do. What have you found? I want to come back to Shake Rising in a minute, but I'm really curious, like, what have you found to be the connection between our sexual energy, our sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
which, just for clarification purposes for everyone out there, that isn't necessarily the sexual act, it's the
Mm-hmm.
energy itself, and yet can be like, that can be a very transcendent experience. But what have you found to be the interweaving? And I remember the last class of yours that I was in, like, I forgot exactly how you said it, but the mantra for the sacral was something around that this regenerative energy is for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get to own it. And one of my, I guess, passion topics is the way that the church, I actually wrote a screenplay about, because I grew up in purity culture as well. My mom was going to pick my husband. And I went to a writing coach. I've never shared this story on the podcast. I went to a writing coach in LA, and he had me share my life story. And I was 41 years old at the time and still a virgin. And he was like, because I was still in the church. So I was like still waiting, you know? And he was like, you're a fucking anomaly. We have to write this story. And that's actually how I got out of the church. I was still in the church and writing that screenplay about a woman who took her sexuality, which I still hope it gets made one day. A woman who took her sexuality in her own hands and was like, I'm going to end this dry cycle, you know, like I'm going to take this back into my own hands, is actually like doing the research for that is what got me out. Like, I started to see the control and how sexual energy is, it is our life force. It is our creativity. It is our divinity. It is like, without it, we're shells walking around. And, you know, then of course that also led me to like, oh, and like how the Bible was written. That's a really creepy story, you know? So it took me a lot of different places, but all of that to say, yeah, I believe that is one of the biggest parts of our divinity that has been suppressed by that system. I remember hearing on a podcast one time that if you can separate people from their bodies, then you can completely control them.
Yes.
And so now I'm just going to pass it to you. What do you have to say?
Oh, so profound. Yes. When you can separate someone from their body, you can control them 100%. And I mean, there's so many things coming through, but the first one is like, I desire wholeness. I desire deeply to feel allowed to be here on this earth, to feel like I am truly a child of God and that I am part of creation. And therefore, it's impossible for me to buy into the idea that there is this incredible being in this incredible body on this incredible earth, but I can't do anything with it. Like, there's just no way that that's true. And so there's this deep desire for wholeness that allows me to feel the obvious interweaving of spirituality and sexuality. Because when we cut off parts of ourselves, whether it's our humanity or our sexuality specifically or our spirituality, we are a part of the self, right? And when we bring all parts in to be at the table, there's so much power in just being in this body, because every part is here. My shitty qualities are here. My great qualities are here. My sexuality is here. My spirituality is here. Everyone is here. And so that idea and sensation of wholeness allows me to be like, obviously they're interwoven, right? Obviously sexuality brings up a lot because every single person, man or woman, has an experience of either manipulating someone else with their sexual energy or being manipulated by someone's sexual energy, throwing their sexual energy at someone to get what they want, or having someone's sexual energy thrown on them, taking what they have. And so my invitation for myself daily when I met with fear of my own sexual energy is this how you actually feel, Sarah? Or is this because in the past it was unsafe for you to experience sexual energy? Because if you are existing because something happened to you in the past, fuck that. Like, no more are you going to give power to some person that did something to you over a decade ago. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to all the people in your life. No, like you get to decide what you want to do with your sexual energy. So there's this desire for wholeness and this sensation that I experience of wholeness. There is the fact checking why I do what I do on my past experiences to make sure that I'm actually deciding.
Mm.
And then it's just like, you know, our sexual energy brings life into the world. And when we're connecting with God, we're connecting with the creator or creation. It's like, duh. You know what I mean? Like the energy we use to bring life into the world, we can't access, but we're going to worship the great one that brings life into the world. Like that just seems so bizarre.
Yeah.
And I will say, in this journey of accepting my sexual energy and my spirituality so I can feel whole and so I can feel deeper connection to the creator and creation and so I can be free from my past experiences of trauma, there are times where we overexert it and we're like, oopsie, wow, I just remembered how powerful my sexual energy is and I just fucked that up a little bit. And then we just come back instead of being like, see, sex is bad and sex is wrong. And I think there was a period in history where, there was a lot of rape and molestation and abuse happening. And so it was just easier to be like, it's bad instead of being like, no, we need to learn how to manage it. It's powerful. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was also part of the story of the writing of the Bible that I discovered is the priests, like, they didn't start out celibate. There was this race to grab power, and they started somehow associating having sex with their wives as being distracted. And so that's actually how like the practice of celibacy started within the priesthood, is like they were like, well, no, I want to be the bishop or the whatever, and so I can't have you. Like, you just need to get away from me, which is wild,
And it shows the separation of body and mind. They're like, boom, the body is too powerful. I'm getting distracted by it. I'm going to leave my body and I'm going to go into the mind completely.
Totally. Yeah. Which I'm so curious well, again, I have like 4 questions. If you had to guess, this is just a game, but if you had to guess, like, where does that separation from the body, not the church, not the people who like propagate it, but like, where is that fear actually sourced?
I mean, if I'm honest, I think that all of us feel afraid of the power that we hold. I feel it when I'm really in my body with all my faculties online. I know exactly how I feel, exactly what I want. I'm able to own when I make a mistake. I'm able to be humble and empowered. It is terrifying how powerful I am and we are. And it scares me. And I don't think that's programming. I think it's our own fear of our own power stacked up against every experience in which we did misuse our power. And instead of forgiving ourselves, letting go of past trauma, whether self-inflicted, imposed on another, or imposed and inflicted on us, we hold on to it in the body. And then every time we're dropping into the body, we're like, it's too scary. Look what happened last time. Yeah, I think we know. I think we are afraid of our power.
Yeah. What that really reminds me of is like one of my deepest beliefs, and I kind of said it a little bit before, but one of my deepest beliefs is like we are the divine. Like, part of what has been taken from humanity, I don't necessarily know by who. And I don't think it started with the church, because we were worshiping gods way, way, way before the Christian church, And so somewhere there was this outsourcing of our divinity that happened. There are theories out there that like have to do with the Anunnaki and like other people that like supposedly came here. I don't know. But somewhere that fear set in. Maybe, I'm a fantasy writer, so I think about things like the cataclysm and, like how that happened. And perhaps if we had something to do with causing that, because we were fully operating in our own power, then like that's been passed down through the generations. And whether or not that's how it started, something happened that severed us from being in the image of God. Like, it's in every single text, not just the Bible. And so what I really love that you spoke to is that we all have that, like, regardless of our circumstances or our past, like it is that ancestral wound that we're carrying. With that being the case, getting super deep, what do you think is the way, and maybe it's just repeatedly like stepping past that fear point. But what is the way that we begin to introduce that power back into our lives, whether it's sexual energy or just like, well, sexual, I honestly think that is the source of it all, you know, creativity, everything.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do we start re-owning that in a way that where it actually does become like every time you make a move, you're not feeling like you're running a marathon or like, you know, jumping a huge hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a great question. It's interesting. You know, I heard you say we've been separated from the body, we've stayed in the mind, we've cut ourselves off from the body as a culture, and also we've cut ourselves off from divinity seeking outside. And so it's this curiosity. The more we drop into this body, the more we access God, which is so counter to what they've taught us. Like, don't listen to your body's sinful urges, seek God. And I'm like, what if God exists in this body? The one that they created. I mean, obviously he or she would put themselves in their own creation. And so to answer that question of how can it not feel so terrifying when we access our power, I think the first thing that comes to mind is surrounding ourselves. For me, it's with women, but it could be with any people that really see us, support us, remind us who we are and are walking that same path. When I first had this awakening experience at Ecstatic Dance, it felt really important for me to be around people who were having a similar experience, to reflect back to me, yeah, you're not crazy. Isn't it crazy wild that you can move your body any way you want? Like, isn't that amazing? Versus being around people who hadn't experienced ecstatic dance would be like, you look insane, right? And so I think creating community around like-minded people for me is the easiest way to make changes in reclaiming our power and reclaiming our sex and reclaiming our body and reclaiming God, divinity, and it not feeling so terrifying. And then also, when we are faced with fear, naming it and being honest, because we've been taught to like, that's weak. Come on, you're on your journey and you know it's not true. So just like move through it. And it's like, no, we're dropping into the body and going, oof, okay, I'm moving through my power. It is so scary. I feel terrified. My throat is tight. My shoulders are clenched. I'm going to be honest, vulnerable, not just to myself, but to everyone around me that I'm feeling this way. Then that fear doesn't have hold and power over me. It starts to expel at the body. And then I'm going to literally move my physical body through embodiment practice, ecstatic dance, whatever, so that that fear doesn't continue living there, right? So we have community kind of outsourcing, we have honesty and vulnerability, and then using the physical body to discharge the fear that is visceral.
Yeah. Wow. Gorgeous. That was like very brilliant.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, so true. Like surrounding ourselves with people who, yeah, I had that transition when I was coming out and just starting to go to dance. And I tried to bring my old friends with me. You know, that was interesting. It didn't go well. And yeah, so like surrounding yourself with people who are fully supporting you. And then I love the being honest and vulnerable with where you are right now. I mean, that's honestly a tip I'm going to take away because I'm not always great at stopping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I have a lot of fixed energy, so I can just go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 days later, I'll be like, oh, I need to crash because I've been pushing past my own boundaries, you know? So there's a piece of that like I think is also important is like the slowing down and being present. You know, it is one of the reasons I do love Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys because his approach is all contemplation. It's like slowing down, just slow down, just be right where you are right now. And being honest about it with yourself. And if there is someone with you, like with them as well. Yeah. Like, I think something that might be helpful for people who are maybe like just starting their journey with the body, like, because I know I have people who are listening who are coming from a variety of different places. Some like aren't even in the spiritual community. Some are, you know, have come from the church. Some are in the spiritual community. And so like in any of those cases, you could just be starting your journey with your body and just starting to, I mean, I know for myself, it's only been in the last year where I actually started to feel safe in my own body. And so even that is such a journey of like getting to where you can actually drop in. And maybe this leads us to talking a little bit more about like the actual practice of shake rising. Like, what is it and how do you, and if you don't happen to live on Kauai, like how can people like access it? But like, what are the principles that you really have put in place
Mm-hmm.
that, because the constant invitation that I always feel in your class is to connect very intimately with what my own experience is within my own body, and like this deep listening that I don't think is normal. It's not, it is normal. It's not widespread.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like how would you guide people to kind of like start that journey? And yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back to this thread we were pulling at in the beginning where both of us had this need for control, which is a basic human need. We weren't getting that need met. We found a way to get that need met through our physical body. And then that modality, that tool stopped serving us and actually became a master. And so we had to shift. And in the same way, the tools that I could provide today and that someone could tap into may serve in the beginning and then stop serving, and or vice versa. And so I just want to touch on that in the beginning, it was very important for me to be around like-minded people. And after a couple of years in this community where we were all part of, a shared lifestyle and practices that resonated, there did start to become this sense of indoctrination and church-like energy again, where it was exclusive. We're spiritual. And if you don't know sound bath, then you must be new on your journey. And it was like, oh, cool. Now it's time for me to shift my tools. Now it's time for me to expand outside of spiritual community and be with people who challenge me, who make me see new perspective. And so I think it's important to find tools that work and then change them when they stop working, instead of being like, oh, see, the spiritual people are just like the church people. It's like, no, we just keep changing and evolving.
Humans.
We're just humans and we're all just doing our best. And
We do the same thing wherever we are, whatever system we're building. We do the same thing.
we love it. We love it so much. We don't feel a sense of control. So then we start controlling ourselves overtly until we're back to the same spot where we don't have a sense of control.
Exactly. And we love division. So of course we're like, well, I think there's this spirit of, I think patriarchy, honestly. I think patriarchy and colonialism and all of this which has been going on for thousands of years, has just so deeply imprinted us with competition. And that energy of competition, whether we know we're actively engaging with it or not, that is actually what makes us other someone else. Because if I'm not in competition with you, then that, like, I don't have to be above you or below you or shut you out of my party because you don't know the things that I know, So I think that plays a lot in it, but carry on.
Yes, 100%. Like it's just human things.
Yeah.
But I would say, as you're navigating what tools work for you and when, and you're shifting and changing and finding one tool that can help people get into the body, that is so basic and so challenging, is looking in the mirror at yourself. And just that, you don't have to do anything, just looking in the mirror and noticing what you think, what you see, how you feel. Maybe you start talking to yourself in the mirror a little bit, and then maybe you start dancing in the mirror in a little bit. And so in Shake Rising, we have this pretty science-backed philosophy. And the first intention to activate this liberation we're accessing is to put all of our attention on ourselves, with the understanding that our attention is powerful enough and potent enough to energize anything. And that's from, Deepak Chopra's Spiritual Laws of Success. So he talks about the law of intent and desire, where when you put your attention on something, it will energize and grow. And so in practice, we put all of our attention on ourselves and we start to feel ourselves, maybe for the first time ever, like, whoa, this is how I feel. I had no idea. And so putting attention on self through the mirror or through eyes closed, like ecstatic dance, where you're just dancing and all of your attention is on you, would be like my first invitation to someone trying to find their body, is put attention on yourself and see what happens. Use a mirror, use your eyes closed, do it in an open space with people, do it by yourself. And then the second intention is we start to reprogram our subconscious mind, because we have all of these beliefs, like sex is sin, for instance, that aren't our belief system, but they live in this body as truth because many, many people have said it. And then you have experiences that kind of prove it, i.e. trauma, where sex didn't feel good. And so you're like, it must be true. And so to kind of override these belief systems that are controlling us unconsciously, we start to just repeat phrases. We start to repeat affirmations, not to make ourselves believe it, but as we repeat a phrase, we start to feel how the body responds and we get to know ourselves better. Like when I say out loud, I am safe in this body, I can feel my throat contract. And I'm like, well, as long as I'm not around that person. Well, as long as I'm doing XYZ, and I really get to know myself and feel the physical sensations of my body. And then the third piece we bring in Shake Rising that I would recommend to anyone is shaking, like Osho meditation or Peter Levine's work on somatic experiencing or Shake Rising class, where when you shake, whether it's like this or bouncing up and down, your body releases the energy from every experience stuck in this body, distorting your reality. So if we're talking about sex, the experience in which you were abused, or you said yes, but you meant no, or it started hurting and you didn't say anything, and all that energy lives in the body, making you believe it's wrong, it's bad, you're wrong, you're bad. But if we were to clear that, we get to know our body's true truth. So we're talking putting attention on self, repeating phrases to understand ourselves and learn ourselves, and then using shaking as a way to like clear past shit so that we can actually truly be ourselves. And we do all this in Shake Rising, as you know, and Shake Rising is this global and growing movement practice. There's facilitators all over the States. So you can go to shakerising.com and see where the facilitators are. We offer it online every week. Or if you're in Kauai, you can come and shake with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love especially the pointing out of like working with the mantras and how you pointed out, because I've heard so much about like, you can't just put something in there on top of garbage and expect it to like change it. So really like reframing that is like, I'm not saying this mantra to like make myself believe it. I'm saying it to get to know myself, like what actually feels true. If this doesn't, I love how you say in class, you're always like, if that doesn't feel true, then what does? What feels true right now? And that you get to work with that and you get to be with that energy. And then the shaking, that's such a practical thing. Yeah, that's so brilliant. Yeah. Okay. So my last two, I'll ask them one at a time. I guess if you could leave people with, no, actually, I'm going to do the other question first. One of my biggest passions, and I think it feels like it's in line with yours as well, but like I'm really here for the creatives and the dreamers and like empowering them to liberate themselves from the conditioning, from the limiting mindsets. And so often that is connected to trauma or societal programming or any of the kind of things that we've experienced. And so what I witness in you, well, let me say it this way first. What I witness in a lot of creatives is there's like I have this dream, I have this thing, but man, there's so much fear that, again, depending on the level of trauma you've experienced or whatever, like I just see so many people stuck and not doing the thing, and there's always like, well, and I've been guilty of this myself, like, well, I need this healing practice, or I need to go to this retreat, or I need, I don't know, something's still wrong, I can't step out. And there's something about you, I want to like celebrate you in this. You're like fucking doing it. And I imagine you're not immune to all of that internal bullshit. So yeah, I'm just curious if you can like share with people, with the dreamers, with the creatives who like have a thing. They're like, I know I have a thing on the inside of me and it wants to come out. Just what would be your main encouragement for them to help them get past the self-imposed limitations?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's interesting when I hear, okay, we have these limited mindsets and beliefs that keep us stuck. My curiosity is, yes. And what if it's more about the limiting experiences we've had where you did step forward and you were shut down, where you did say, hey, I have an idea, and someone said that's stupid. And that energy is in the body keeping you stuck. And so rather than the creatives and the dreamers working with their mind, a lot of them have their mind. They're like, I know I can do it. And it's like, yeah, but your body is living in the experience of when you tried and you failed, or when you tried and they didn't like it. And so every time you go to try again, it's like, I can't do it. And so my invitation would be to find some type of nervous system regulating practice, whether it's shake rising or breath work, that brings you into the body to release those experiences that are actually 1,000,000% still inside and holding us there.
Mm.
Because once our body is free, most of us have the mind ready to rock. We've spent our whole life developing the mind, but once we free the body from all those past experiences, it's game time.
Did not expect you to go there, and I should have. That's so on brand, but I love it. That's so true. Yeah, thank you for that. For myself personally, thank you. My last question is, since we've talked so much about freedom and liberation, if you had to define those two terms, just how would you, and I kind of hate definitions, but I'm still going to ask, how would you encapsulate that idea? What does it mean to you?
It's such a hard question. I feel like it's a moving target for me.
Mm.
But I will say something that really activated me was a woman said, it's not freedom from, because then you'll always be trapped. It's freedom to. It's not freedom from your anger. It's freedom to be angry. It's not freedom from your trauma. It's freedom to feel your trauma. And so there's something in me that when I think about freedom and liberation, the third word that comes through is this word sovereignty, which is the ability to govern oneself. So it's when I feel free and liberated, it's I'm making decisions based on me, not based on my past experiences and not based on what I've been told, but the truth of me. And I'll share this little tidbit. I'm in a relationship with an incredible man. And when we first started dating a couple years ago, everyone in my community was like, what are you doing? We came from such different backgrounds, him so deep in partying and playing and substances, and me little ecstatic dance fairy. And when we came together, there was this opportunity. I felt like God was like, are you really free? Because you feel this man's heart and you love this man's heart. And he's this beautiful man that's been in this weird chapter of life that deeply is desiring to change and is transforming. But are you going to say no because he doesn't look the way your community thought he would look? He doesn't look the way you thought he would look? Or are you actually going to be free enough to say, I choose this relationship and I choose love because it actually feels really, really good? And so it's constantly fact checking myself to be like, am I making this decision, or am I making this decision on appearances, on what I thought I wanted, what they're thinking? And it's so sneaky. And I just have to keep asking myself all the time.
I love that. I hope everybody got that sovereignty, truly the sovereignty. I was actually journaling about that this morning. This is going to go out on Substack. I'm on there a lot and I hear it from all directions. Everybody is so fucking tired of living someone else's story and living someone else's truth. And it's like we're all as a species right now, whether you feel it, whether you're in the spiritual community and you think you're awake or not, I think everyone is feeling this urge of I'm so done being run by somebody else's opinions and thoughts. And so what I really love that you just unpacked is that freedom and liberation is really just the freedom and liberation to be 100% authentically yourself. And then what is that being choosing and the sovereignty too? We oftentimes, I think some of the traditional, more pop culture idea of freedom is well, it means I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And there's just this wild abandon, and that's not necessarily the truth. It is the, I won't say self-control, but the self-mastery.
Yes.
To be able to constantly be present with yourself and to constantly, like you were saying, ask yourself those questions and be honest with yourself. And is this my truth or is this someone else's truth?
Mm-hmm.
And really coming back to that place of the divinity and the sovereignty within, that's what we came here to do.
Yeah, I just talked to a sister the other day and she said, non-containment is not the same as freedom. And I was like, just flinging your sexual energy out is not the same as freedom, because then guess what? Your sexual energy is ruling you. Your sexual energy is making decisions for you. Your desire, your primal urges is the one in the driver's seat, not you, fully inhabited with all faculties, your highest self, your primal self, your sex, your spirit. It's not freedom if it takes the freedom away from other people, because we're all intrinsically connected. So if my action of liberation takes yours away, your choice away, that's not it.
Yeah. Well, and what's also really beautiful that you just highlighted there is the different parts, the primal self, the higher self. Like if your primal self or your sexual energy is driving the car and taking the power away from the higher self, then like that's a disempowering thing. So there's this, which I really love that you drew that picture, because so often I feel like we think in the spiritual community that like the higher self should be in charge all the time, which there's an element of that, but it's always in partnership with this other part of us that is just 100% human, you know? And so coming back to like, you've mentioned the word wholeness so many times, which I love, again, with you being double Pisces, because it's so on brand, but it's that idea of like freedom and liberation really being the whole self operating together in harmony. And then when that's happening, then my actions aren't going to hurt another human beings, because we're all online. Yeah. I just want to ask, just give you a space here if there's like anything else you want to share, anything that feels like super alive. And then also like if you can I'll obviously put all the links and everything in there, but if you can just kind of let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can work with you, how they can receive more of your magic.
Thank you so much for having me and creating the space for me to share. And I guess the last thing I would just want to leave is that we are so much more powerful than we remember. Life can be and is, if we want, so much more juicy than we've ever imagined. And everything we desire to experience is 1,000,000% accessible to us. And the epic thing is, it is not controlled by or limited by any other factor besides self. We have the power to make these shifts by looking inward. It has nothing to do with what you've experienced. It has nothing to do with what you've been told. It's about what you are believing now and what you are experiencing now. And I love doing this work with people of finding what is truly limiting them from living their juiciest life possible, whether that's in career or relationship or lifestyle. And so I would recommend, emailing me, Sarah@ShakeRising, going to shakerising.com. We have Shake Rising every week online for our members. And we also offer a free shake every month and a free community circle every month where we just come together and talk. So if you're looking for like-minded people, you can jump in and just be around women who are like, yeah, I see you. I see your gift. Okay, cool. Let's get you rocking and rolling. Yeah.
I didn't know you had that. I saw it yesterday, but I didn't know that before. And I was like, ooh, I think I'm going to jump in. Oh, thank you so, so much. This has been just a ride of a conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your personal experience, and like just what I feel from you so much is this deep devotion to wholeness and to liberation. And yeah, I'm celebrating you so much.
Thank you.
So thrilled.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. You're such a bright light and such an open heart. And like, obviously Leos can be so many things, but what I feel from you is just your like lion heart for like bringing people into this space of more liberation through your own gifts, through shared spaces. And it feels really good to be in connection with you. Yeah, thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. Aloha.